We have our final pick on the bottles open in Adobe Camera Raw, and of course the first thing we're going to do is go to our profile, and we'll see how the colors change when I go to the exact profile created for the camera. Boom, you can see how the red just really jumped in there. So it just, changes certain colors. It makes the colors, the color relationships really work together very well. Let's go back to our first tab. And I'm liking the overall. I can see by the histogram it's looking really good. I may just give it just a little more black just to deepen up the shadows. And I'm going to add a little clarity to it because that's going to put a little more contrast between these ribs of the glass, make that really stand out. And I'm just going to kick up the vibrance and saturation just a little bit, and we are pretty much ready to process that file. We are going to open it up in the Color Match RGB workspace. We'll go ahead and now open up the image. I have the file open now, and let's take a look at how we're going to enhance this a little bit. I don't particularly care for the white area, so we are going to use parts of this image, sort of deconstruct it and sort of reconstruct it back. I see one little spot here I don't like on the glass. Let me get the spot healing tool and just give me a little shot right here, just to kind of get that out of there. Very good. Okay. Now, let's take the marquee tool, and I'm going to draw a selection around this area right here. And we're going to float that. So we'll do a Command J or Control J, which will basically turn that selection into its own layer. So we'll open this Layers palette. We can see that it is now its own layer right here. Okay? Let's move this down a little bit. Now, let's take this piece right here. We'll go to the Move tool, and we'll move it up to the top section right here. And I'm going to try inverting the image. Command I or Control I to invert the image from a positive to a negative. And I'm going to play around. We're going to change the shape of it a little bit, but I want to look at the blend mode. So the very first thing I always do is that while I'm in the Move tool, I'm going to use my Shift plus or Shift minus to go forward or backwards through the blend modes. You can see right here we're normal, and as I go Shift plus, we're changing it to all the different blend modes. I'm just going to go through them all, and I might take some notes. Multiply looks pretty interesting. Definitely don't like color burn. Linear burn is looking interesting. Lighten, darken. We just go through all the different blend modes, and you don't always stop. Hard light. Now that's looking pretty interesting. I wanted something light and very airy, and that's not too bad there. I like that. But I seem to like multiply. Oh, that's interesting. That's the same color. We don't like that. So we go through all these tones. We get back to the beginning, and I think I liked the multiply. Okay, but I might play with the actual opacity of that. Now I'm going to go to the free transform tool, Command T or Control T on the PC, and that'll bring up my bounding box. I'm holding my Shift key will constrain proportions, and I'm going to pull this down, and I'm just bringing this to this area right in here. I like that. Is right about there is looking pretty interesting. I'm liking that. Okay, I'm going to hit return to finish that off. I'm going to play with my opacity. I'll use my scrubby slider and go right over the word opacity, and as I bring that down, I can see the a little bit lighter information, just the tonality getting a lot lighter in here. Now I don't like this part here in these lines, so we're going to add a layer mask. Now in this case, I want to keep the majority of the image, so I will add a white layer mask and paint off. If I was going to only use a part of it, I would hold down my Option or Alt key and create a black layer mask and then paint it in. But in this case, I'm going to just make a white layer mask. White reveals, black conceals. So if we're going to we have a white mask, let's have a black color. For our foreground color, I'm going to pick my paintbrush. I'm a soft brush. Let's double check our brush presets. This is something I don't like. I'm going to go ahead and take off my brush dynamics. I don't want it to start out as a point and get, as I press down with pressure, it gets wider. I want it to be the same pressure, the same size of the brush all the way through. And I'll use my pressure more for the flow. So I'm going to bring my flow down very low, 100% opacity, very low flow. And I'm going to paint with black, normal, and I'm just going to start bringing in. I want to take off this line and this information right in here. We don't need any of that, and we don't need any of this, and I like that. That's coming along. Just make sure we take that line, totally take that part off, so there's no hard line there. Oops, if I don't, oh, didn't like that part, so let's go back to the white. Let's bring that part back in again. I like that. I'm going to keep that part. Go back to the black, and we'll take this part off right in here. And I don't like it in here so much. I want that yellow to come back through, so I'm removing it somewhat in here so that yellow stays solid. That makes it look a little bit more interesting. And I'm liking that a lot, but it needs something a little bit down here. So I got an idea. Let's take our square marquee tool. We'll go back to the very first layer so you have before and after. I'm liking that. Let's go back and take the square marquee tool, and I'm going to draw a selection from here, say down to here. It's going to include, I like this curved shape right here. So let's take that. We're on the bottom layer again. I'll do a Command J, and we'll float that. So now we have this as its own layer. Go back to our move tool, and again we'll just do the keyboard shortcut this time, Command T for free transform. And I'm not going to hold down my shift key this time. I'm going to constrain. I don't want to constrain the proportions. I want to sort of make a shape that I'm going to bring into right here. I think I like something like this just to kind of balance that out. Hit enter. I don't want to keep that red area, so I mean there's a lot of different things. We could use the magic wand very simply on that layer. It's just to click on that. I'll hold my shift key down, and just since it's all part of that same red color right there, we can take off that and that for a second. And I'm just sort of selecting. We'll move that up a little bit to, let's move that up to 50% so it'll grab more of it. And we'll click here. Yeah, and we're just sort of shift clicking around in here to grab all of that area. One more spot to actually move in a little closer, see what we're doing here. Not quite getting it all, but I'm holding my shift key down and I'm adding to that selection. I just want to get most of that red color. It's not going to pick up the blue since it's such a big difference between the two. And I'm just clicking around in here. And I'm not really worried about the edge or anything because I'm going to use it very, very subtly back there. So we'll just do a Command X on that layer. Make sure we're on the right layer here. And Command X will cut that part away. If I need to, I can use my I can use an eraser tool to get rid of some of that. I'll just grab a lasso tool and just grab a little bit of this area here. And that looks fine. Okay. Now let's put our other layer back on. Now, I was thinking, let's play with the blend modes again. So I'm going to go, while I'm in the Move tool, Shift plus, see if there's anything interesting that happens in here. Sometimes something just oh, see, there we go, Overlay, Soft Light. But don't stop. See, I like Overlay. I like the transition of light right here. I like the Overlay, but don't always stop when you see the key thing is, don't stop when you think you see it. You need to go through all of them because the best one might still be hiding, might still be ahead of you there. You never knew if you didn't get to it. In this case, I go through all of them. I like the Overlay. So after going through all of them, we'll go back to Overlay right there, and I'm going to play with my transition a little bit, just a light shadow. And I don't like the hard edge right here, so we'll add a layer mask, experiment with this a little bit, go back to my paintbrush. We know it black, so we just softly sort of take out the rough edges a little bit, rid of it down in here, and just sort of remove some of the harder edges here. Just has this sort of out of focus reflection going on in the background right there. And that's looking good. I may blur it a little bit. It looks a little too hard, so I'm thinking maybe a slight blur to it. So let's make it into prepare it for a smart filter, because that way if we make a smart filter, if we don't like it, we can change that. So we've changed that to a smart object, and so now we can go to Filter, Blur, and we'll go to a Gaussian blur, and we'll just start with a little bit and just soften that up a little bit more. That's too much. Just something like that, just to look like it's another shape back behind there. That's all I really need. So I mean, very simply, we've gone from, and of course if we don't like that, we can always take that off back and forth as we see fit. So let's go ahead, and we only really have just a few layers. We only really have the base layer and one uncut out piece, one cut out piece here. So we've really enhanced that. Let's look at where we were to start with. From here to here, we've really just sort of finished it off enough to make that thing look just a little bit nicer. I think it's got some really cool shapes to it. Nice graphic thing, could make a cool poster, just a nice graphic portfolio piece working. I really like this type of area right in here. I love the transition of light in here. I love the way this is working, and these cool lights are just sort of interacting with each other. Just a good exercise in light, shape, and shadow.